Ghostly tales, yet mirrors of human life. Hey everyone! Welcome to Encountering Chinese. Ghostly Tales from Liao Zhai. Today, I'm going to tell you a story called Spirit-Zhu. In ancient China, there was a legend that ghosts could transform into humans by inhabiting undamaged corpses. This phenomenon was known as borrowing a corpse to return to life. After these ghostly beings transformed into humans, some would lose all their memories, while others retained their memories from their ghostly existence. In some cases, these transformed beings would even possess extraordinary abilities, such as seeing things that humans couldn't, or possessing magical powers. The story we are about to tell today is related to the concept of borrowing a corpse to return to life. Once upon a time in Chengzhou, there lived a man named Li Hua who owned a vast amount of farmland. Despite being in his 50s, he still hadn't been blessed with a son. Li Hua had a daughter named Xiao Hui. She possessed a striking beauty, and both her parents adored her dearly. However, tragedy struck when Xiao Hui fell ill at the age of 14, and to everyone's sorrow, she passed away. The loss of their daughter cast a cold and empty atmosphere over the household. Li Hua found life duller without her and decided to marry a younger woman. Over a year passed, and the new wife gave birth to a son for Li Hua. He cherished the boy as a precious gem and named him Zhu. As Zhu grew, he developed a strong and handsome physique, yet he wasn't the sharpest tool in the shed. His mind seemed rather simple, and he often struggled to communicate clearly. Even at the ages of 5 or 6, he couldn't distinguish between beans and wheat, and his speech was often muddled and stuttered. Despite this, Li Hua cared little for his son's limitations and continued to adore him wholeheartedly. In Chengzhou's bustling streets, there was a one-eyed monk who begged for alms every day. This monk seemed to possess knowledge about others' private matters, which left the surrounding people astonished. People believed the one-eyed monk was somewhat divine, even spreading tales that he held the power to predict life's fortunes and misfortunes. Thus, the monk started using his reputation to demand money and goods from others, often requesting significant sums that people dared not refuse. One day, the monk approached Li Hua and asked for 100 coins. Li Hua was in a predicament and gave him only 10 coins, but the monk flatly refused them. With no other choice, Li Hua decided to offer the monk 30 coins instead, which resulted in a stern reprimand from the monk. The monk told Li Hua, "Today, I must have 100 coins, not a single coin less." Hearing this, Li Hua was infuriated and collected his money to leave. In a fit of anger, the monk stood up and warned Li Hua, "Don't you dare regret this, don't you dare." Soon after, Zhu suddenly experienced a sharp pain in his chest, writhing in agony and turning as pale as ash. Li Hua was terrified by this sight and immediately rushed to beg the one-eyed monk for help, clutching 80 coins in his hand. When the one-eyed monk saw Li Hua, he smiled and remarked, "It's not easy for you to bring forth so much money. However, I'm just a simple rural monk, what can I really do?" Realizing the monk's unwillingness to assist, Li Hua had no choice but to return home. To his dismay, he found his son had already passed away. Filled with grief, Li Hua wrote a petition to the local county official to report the incident. The county official ordered the arrest of the one-eyed monk for questioning. The monk skillfully defended himself without revealing the truth. The county official commanded his officers to flog the monk, but the blows seemed to land on him as though he were made of leather. The county official then ordered his officers to search the monk's belongings. They found 2 wooden figures, a small coffin, and 5 small flags on his person. Enraged by these discoveries, the county official pointed to these items and scolded the monk, who finally showed fear and bowed repeatedly. The county official paid no heed to the monk's pleas for mercy and ordered the officers to beat him to death with sticks. After the incident concluded, Li Hua expressed his gratitude to the county official and returned home. As Li Hua arrived home, the night had already fallen. He sat down with his wife on the bed, weeping. Suddenly, a young child hurriedly entered the room. The child addressed Li Hua, saying, "Daddy, why did you leave so quickly? I tried my best to catch up." Li Hua estimated that the child was only around 7 or 8 years old. Taken aback, he was about to inquire about the child, but he noticed that the child appeared ethereal, like smoke and mist. To his surprise, the child entered the room and even sat down on the bed. Li Hua tried to push him off, but the child fell to the ground without making a sound. The child said to Li Hua, "Daddy, why did you do that?" In the blink of an eye, the child was back on the bed. Li Hua was overcome with fear and pulled his wife outside. But to his astonishment, the child followed them out, still calling out "Daddy" and "Mommy," making baby noises without pause. When Li Hua reached the small house where his second wife lived, he locked the door in a hurry. However, when he turned around, he found the child standing beside his legs once more. Li Hua questioned the child in alarm, asking what he wanted. The child replied, "I'm from Suzhou, and my last name is Zhang. I lost my parents when I was 6 years old. My older brother and sister-in-law couldn't tolerate me, so they sent me away to live with my maternal grandfather. One day, while playing outside, I was deceived and led away by an evil monk, who killed me under a mulberry tree. He compelled my spirit to help him harm others. My grievances and resentment were buried deep in the ground, preventing me from finding release or reincarnation. Thanks to you, Daddy, for clearing my name and seeking revenge. I'm willing to be your son and take care of you for the rest of your life." Hearing this, Li Hua told the child, "Humans and ghosts exist in separate worlds. How can we rely on each other?" The child persisted. "As long as you prepare a small room for me and arrange a set of bedding, I'll only need a cup of cold rice soup every day, nothing more." Li Hua agreed, and the child was overjoyed. Thus, he began living alone in the small house. The next morning, the family discovered that the child was coming and going around the courtyard, as if he truly belonged there. He overheard Li Hua's second wife weeping every day due to her longing for her son. He asked her, "How many days has your son Zhu been dead?" She replied that Zhu had been dead for 7 days. The child then said, "Considering the cold weather, the body should not have decayed immediately. You can open the coffin and see. If the body is not damaged, I can bring him back to life." Upon hearing this, Li Hua's family was very pleased, so they went to dig up the grave together with the child and opened the coffin to examine the body. They found that Zhu's body was still intact. Despite their joy at seeing Zhu's body, the family was naturally still saddened. At that moment, Li Hua turned around and realized the child had disappeared. Puzzled, he carried Zhu's body back home. As soon as they placed the body on the bed, they noticed that Zhu's eyes were moving. After a while, Zhu unexpectedly spoke, asking for hot water to drink. After drinking the hot water, he broke out in a sweat and was able to sit up after sweating. Everyone was thrilled to see Zhu come back to life. Unexpectedly, after his revival, Zhu became intelligent and clever, quite different from before. However, they found that he was lifeless and motionless during the night, with no sign of breath. When they turned him over, they discovered he was completely still, as if dead. This astonished everyone, and they thought he had died again. To their surprise, when it was nearly dawn, he woke up once more. They approached him and asked what had happened. He explained, "When I followed the evil monk before, we had 2 children. The other child was named Gerzi. Yesterday, I couldn't catch up to Daddy because I was saying goodbye to Gerzi behind me. He told me that he's now in the underworld, serving as the godson of a rich man, Mr. Jiang, and living a carefree life. Last night, he came to me to play. Just now, he sent me back using a white-nosed, black-mouthed yellow horse." Li Hua's second wife quickly asked him, "Did you see my Zhu in the underworld?" He replied, "Your Zhu has been reborn." He and Daddy did not share a father-son connection. It was just that Yan Zifang from Jinling used Zhu's body to reclaim the 1800 coins Daddy owed him. Only then did Li Hua recall that when he was doing business in Jinling, he owed Yan Zifang money for goods. Later, he heard that Yan Zifang had passed away, and he thought the matter had been forgotten. Hearing the child's words today, Li Hua was greatly frightened. Li Hua's second wife then asked the child, "In the underworld, did you see your sister Xiao Hui?" The child said, "I didn't see her. I'll search for her next time I go." After another 2 or 3 days, the child said to Li Hua's wife, "I saw my sister. She's doing well in the afterlife, and she's even married to the son of King Chujiang. She's adorned with pearls and jade, surrounded by countless servants whenever she steps out." Li Hua's wife asked, "If she's doing so well, why doesn't she come back home to visit?" The child replied, "Since she's already passed away, she technically has no connection left with you. However, if you recount her past experiences in detail, it will evoke her emotions towards you. Yesterday, with the help of Mr. Jiang, I managed to meet my sister. She had me sit on a coral bed and I shared stories of her life with our earthly parents. But, she seemed to be in a daze as if half asleep. I continued, Sister, when you were on Earth, you enjoyed embroidering twin flowers and accidentally pricked your finger. The bloodstain stained the bedspread, and you embroidered a red cloud shape on the stained part. Mother still hangs that bedspread on the wall by the bed, as she misses you dearly. Has Sister forgotten about this? It was then that she felt a sense of sorrow. She told me, "Wait for me to talk to my husband and ask him if I can go back home to visit mother." Li Hua's wife inquired about the day their daughter would return home, but the child said he didn't know. One day, the child said to Li Hua's wife, "My sister will be here soon. She's accompanied by many attendants. You should prepare food and drinks for them." After a while, he rushed into the house and said, "Sister has arrived." He moved a chair into the main hall and said, "Sister, take a rest and don't be too saddened for now." However, no one could see anyone entering the house. The child led people to conduct a ritual outside, and then he returned and said, "Sister's attendants have temporarily left." She asked, "Is the green brocade coverlet that used to be on the bed still there?" Li Hua's wife replied, "Yes, it is." Immediately, she opened the chest and took out the coverlet. The child continued, "Sister asked me to place the coverlet in her old chamber. She's a bit tired now and needs to rest. We can speak with mother again tomorrow morning." In the eastern neighbor's house lived Xiao's daughter, who was once a close friend of Xiao Hui during their teenage years. On that evening, Xiao's daughter had an unexpected dream where she saw Xiao Hui wearing a headscarf and a purple shawl, visiting her. Xiao Hui's way of speaking and her mannerisms were just like they used to be. Xiao Hui told Xiao's daughter, "I'm no longer a human now. Wanting to see my parents is like crossing vast oceans and mountains. Tomorrow, I wish to use your body to speak to my family. Please don't be frightened." At the break of dawn, while Xiao's daughter was conversing with her mother, she suddenly collapsed to the ground, seemingly lifeless. After a while, she regained consciousness and said to her mother, "Xiao Hui and aunt have been apart for several years. I didn't expect that you now have white hair." Her mother, taken aback, asked, "Honey, have you gone mad?" Without saying anything, the daughter bid farewell to her mother and started to walk outside. Her mother, sensing that there was a reason behind this, followed her. Zhao's daughter ran directly to the Li family's residence, where she clung to Li Hua's wife and wept sorrowfully. Li Hua's wife was greatly surprised, not knowing what was happening. The daughter said, "Mom, I returned yesterday, tired and couldn't find the chance to speak with you. It's my filial duty, but at such a young age, I left this world, leaving you and Dad grieving and longing. It's truly a sin." Hearing these words, Li Hua's wife finally grasped the situation and began to cry. After her tears subsided, Li Hua's wife asked Xiao Hui, "I heard that you're now married into a wealthy and prominent family. That brings me comfort. But how did you manage to come here?" Xiao Hui replied, "My husband and I share a deep love, and my in-laws are very fond of me. Although I'm alone in that world, they've never treated me poorly." Li Hua's wife noticed that while Xiao Hui was alive, she used to support her cheeks with her hands while talking. Surprisingly, Zhao's daughter exhibited the same gestures and expressions as Xiao Hui. Not long after, Zhuer rushed in and said, "The people who are taking sister back have arrived." Zhao's daughter stood up, tearfully bowed to Li Hua and his wife, and told them, "I'm leaving." With that, Zhao's daughter collapsed to the ground. After an hour had passed, she slowly regained consciousness. Several months later, Li Hua fell seriously ill, and medical treatment proved ineffective. The child told the Li family, "Daddy is afraid he will pass away sooner or later, and there's no way to save him now. There are two little ghosts sitting at his bedside. One is holding an iron stick, and the other is clutching a 4 to 5 foot long nettle rope. I've been begging them day and night, but they just won't leave." Li's wife cried, and she began to prepare his burial clothes. That night, the child walked in briskly and said, "All unrelated women, please step aside. Brother-in-law is here to see Daddy." After a while, the child clapped his hands and burst into laughter. Li's wife asked what happened, and the child said, "I'm laughing at those two little ghosts. They heard that brother-in-law was here and got so scared they hid under the bed, like timid turtles." Not long after, the child looked at the sky and greeted it, also inquiring about the well-being of his sister, Xiao Hui. He smiled and clapped his hands again, saying, "The two ghost servants begged brother-in-law not to make them leave. But now they have to surrender." Then the child walked out of the door, returned, and told everyone, "Brother-in-law has left." He took the two little ghosts with him, tied to his horse's reins. Daddy's illness should be getting better. Brother-in-law also told me to report to the king of the underworld and ask for 100 years of life for Daddy and Mommy. The whole family was overjoyed upon hearing this. In the middle of the night, Li Hua's condition miraculously improved, and after a few days, he had fully recovered. Li Hua was overjoyed and invited a teacher to educate the child. Unexpectedly, the child was incredibly bright, and he passed the imperial examination at the age of 18 and became a scholar. Moreover, he could speak about matters related to the underworld. Whenever a neighbor fell ill, he could pinpoint the location of the ghosts haunting them. He instructed the affected family to burn fire at that spot, and afterward, the patient would miraculously recover without any medication. However, one day, the child fell seriously ill, his skin turning blue and purple. He claimed it was a punishment from the spirits for revealing things he shouldn't have. From that moment on, he never spoke about the underworld or spirits again. Alright. That's all for today's ghostly tale. Sure. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. Please also encourage everyone to comment and share more. We'll see you in the next episode.